Bill Shatner and Neil deGrasse Tyson, they're touring the country. When are we going to get to see the
They're
two-man
doing it right
show?
now.
Yeah, when are
Doing
we
it.
going to see the two-man show, George and Bill Trek Talk? When, please, any chance of that happening? Or a revival of The Odd Couple. You love treading the boards, right?
Oh,
What
I
about a
love it. I love theater. I'd
would
love
you do Odd Couple with William Shatner?
that does it stops me a little. I'd have to think on it.
Yeah, that's not a no.
Theater is working night after night after night, and if you're lucky, it's going to be a long run production.
Yeah.
I will have to think about every day.
That's not a no. That's not a no. I take all my money, take all of our money. If you guys do that, that would be so great. And joining me now is a true Hollywood legend. We know him best for his iconic portrayal of Hikaru Sulu in Star Trek. He is also a prolific author detailing his story in the groundbreaking graphic novel They Called Us Enemy. His story continues in his latest book, It Rhymes With Takei. A big welcome to George Takei. George, thank you so much for joining me today. Everything rhymes with Takei, right?
Hello, live long and prosper.
Oh, live long and prosper, my friend. I've been waiting for this. And people ask me all the time, like, which interviews do you want to get or who are you hoping to get? And it's like, you don't want to say it in case it doesn't happen, but I'm so glad I've been waiting for so long. I almost got to meet you here in Columbus, Ohio. You were here last year. I think it was for GalaxyCon. I couldn't get anywhere near your table. It was so packed. And I felt bad because I think they had you by the PA system, which was so loud. And I felt bad. So I apologize for Columbus, Ohio for putting you next to a PA system.
We get
Um,
endeared to a loud speaker systems.
yeah.
It's ubiquitous all over every convention.
There was you couldn't even get near your table. It was just so packed. I'm just curious now, after these two graphic novels you have, both detailing incredibly personal aspects of your
Actually,
whole life.
they're not novels. They really happened. It's true story.
Yeah,
Novels are made up. They're fiction.
that's fair.
So
That's
please
fair.
call it graphic memoir.
Graphic memoir. Okay, because I'm used to comic books. I mean, there's a very interesting storytelling device that, and we'll talk a little bit about that. But when you have fans coming up to you so often at these conventions, whether it's pop culture, whether it's Star Trek, whatever it is, what's the reaction you're getting from just revealing so much about yourself into these memoirs now, taking the graphic approach to it?
Well, I haven't done any conventions other than these big, massive ones where they're so massive that you don't really get a chance to have a conversation with the people. You know, you're signing next, signing next. Uh, I would like to have that conversation with people who have an opinion about graphic memoirs as opposed to graphic fiction.
Right. Well, you detailed a lot, especially the your family in the internment camp in your memoir, your prose memoir. Why did you decide to take this approach now with it? And it's a great team that you've got. It's the same team on both of them, artists and writers. So what made you decide to take this approach to it? And how did you get involved with all these amazing talents?
Well, with they called us enemy. Actually, that was written for a book that was published back in 1994, To the Stars, a Star Trek context book. And the reason I thought redoing it is because it's an important American story. It's not a Star Trek story, it's an American story. And there are so many Americans still to this day that know very little about the unjust imprisonment of innocent Japanese Americans during the Second World War simply because we look like this. It was racist. A combination of war hysteria and racism put us into those camps. Uh, in 1994, when it was first published as text only, uh, people bought it for the Star Trek, and so many uh, Star Trek fans know about it, but it still should be known by Americans because this is a part of American history. It was a story of what happened in this country during the chaos and confusion of the Second World War. And so I thought that it deserves another retelling because still a large number of Americans don't know about the imprisonment
Right.
Japanese Japanese Americans who were incarcerated. So let's retell it in a form where we reach more people. And when we were released from internment, I bought a comic book, and bam! Suddenly, a new world opened up. Because even behind barbed wires, we had nothing. No radio,
Right.
no newspapers, nothing. It was a prison. And this colorful adventures and exciting storytelling opened up for me with comic books. And so I thought this would be a way to reach young people.
Okay. To take it
Have
in
this
that
story.
audience, and now a whole new aspect or a whole different aspect of your life now with the follow-up approach to it. You've got it there. If you're watching the YouTube channel, you've got it behind you there. And it not only goes into your personal life in that respect too, but even, well, it tell people about the new book, and it's so much more. I think it covers the basically after the internment camps up till present day, right?
Exactly.
Yeah.
We were released from the camps. We were free. I was making a new discovery about my own country because I was 5 when we were imprisoned and 9 when we were released. And so it was a whole different world to now a preteen kid that opened up. And it was fascinating. Movies, radio, we didn't have television then, but radio, just listening to sounds. I was able to go to the American West, Bobby Benson and the B-Bar-B Riders, or Green Hornet in modern day 1950s Manhattan, New York City. It was a whole new exposure for me, and I just ate it all up. And particularly movies, I became a movie fan. And then at the same time, I was discovering something else about me that made me different. I was visibly different, and we were in prison for that. I looked like this. But at school, I thought Bobby had such a beautiful smile, and athletic Richard was so fun to look at, particularly because he must have come from a poor family. We were living in a all Mexican American neighborhood, and the other boys didn't feel that way. And I was discovering I was different again. But this difference I could keep inside me. I couldn't help my other visible difference. I looked Japanese for my imprisonment. But I thought I didn't want to be different again. And I wanted to be like the other boys. So I acted like the other boys. When they started dating girls, I dated girls. I double dated with my boyfriends, with their girlfriends. And so I was able to cover up my difference as I was growing up.
It's
And
interesting too because you talk about the fact that you're getting into acting at that point too, the interest in acting coming about, which is detailed in there, and it's interesting how your dad helped you out with that as well too. So it just became another role, I think, at that time, and in that setting too, the '60s. I think late '50s, early '60s, as you're getting into it, that's a career killer. When you saw it at the time. So
from the 50s on,
yeah,
because my favorite movie star was a guy named Tab Hunter. I don't know whether you recognize that name or not.
I know
You're too young.
tab on it. Yep.
Good-looking guy.
I'm old. I'm old.
Oh, we're all getting, yeah,
We're all
you
good.
look like a youngster to me, except for that Tony
There's the
guy.
actor coming out. There's the actor coming.
uh, but this beautiful guy, blonde, blue-eyed, and he often took his shirt off in the movies. Uh, Battle Cry, Damn Yankees, and he was my heartthrob, my favorite movie star. But when he was exposed by a scandal sheet as being gay, he suddenly disappeared. He had a term contract with Warner Brothers, but
Career gone.
they didn't put him in any more movies, and they
Yeah.
just let the contract run out. And so that's when I knew that you couldn't be gay, as Tab Hunter was, or let it be known publicly that he was gay and hoped to have an acting career. They won't hire you. And so I figured, all right, I can act like the other boys. I can be a baseball fan, basketball fan, but my interest of being seeing these athletic young men, and
That was
so,
the role. That was the role you were playing, and it's interesting how that plays out because you see how that translates into the acting career, and you go for the. I know we're a little bit tight on time today because I want to, everything's detailed in the book. So I mentioned so those two graphic memoirs. I won't say graphic novels, but graphic memoirs. But it's so interesting too because it also the new one also details that challenge of getting into acting, especially as a Japanese American too. And I thought that was interesting how your dad sort of played a role in it. There was a quote from you back in 1968. You said, which I thought this was interesting. It said, I was kind of lucky. Many people complain about being of minority groups and so forth, but I think the very fact that I have this face opened a lot of doors for me at a time when it wouldn't have opened for other people. And what was the thought process too of just getting in acting? You were almost an architect. I think your mom and dad wanted you to be an architect. You like came this close, which would have been, much easier at that time. Why take on that huge challenge of acting when even just for, you know, anybody getting into the acting profession would have been impossible at the time, but especially for a Japanese American when there weren't many roles. And yet you found like tons of roles at that time, I think.
well, I was an architecture student up at Berkeley, Cal
Right.
Berkeley, but that desire to be an actor was growing and growing. And so I finally made that decision. I'm going to study acting. But my parents wanted me to have a college degree. So I transferred from Berkeley to UCLA here in Los Angeles, which has a distinguished theater and television department, beautiful theater and beautiful soundstage. And so I transferred to UCLA. And at UCLA, I proved myself to be a good actor. I got
Yeah.
cast in one play after another. And 2 years in a row, I got the Best Supporting Actor award for the plays that I did at UCLA. And so I had a good momentum going in the university theater scene. But UCLA is in Hollywood, and casting directors come to see university productions as well. And in
Mm.
the audience was a casting director at Warner Brothers, Hoyt Bowers. He saw me, and he he had a project there, the epic novel about Alaska, written by Edna Ferber, who did these epic three-generation stories like Giant about Texas or Centennial about Colorado. And this one was about Alaska. And he called me in for a Chinese role, working in a fish cannery. And there's an immigrant from England who's working in a fish cannery as well. And they had cast Richard Burton to play that part. and my scenes were all with Richard Burton. And I desperately wanted that role. And the casting director thought I was right for it. And so I got cast in a major feature motion picture, three-generational story,
Yeah.
written by Edna Ferber. So it was a piece of luck, unexpected.
Well, luck, but you were great. But you were good. You're a great actor, so that came out too. I think. And, I mean, there's luck involved in everything, and I'm sure that made mom and dad breathe a little easier too to realize that you
I
didn't
don't think
necessarily have to
so.
be an architect.
Not, not, not
Not
yet.
at that. Well, maybe once you got Star Trek.
By then, yes, but
Yeah.
working with Richard Burton is they thought was a fluke. It was wonderful. They loved
Wow.
seeing their son in that movie. But he was lucky, he said, my
All
parents
right.
said. But it turned out that I was a good actor, and I
Yeah.
was seen by distinguished casting director, Hoyt Bowers, and he started dropping my names. That was the other difference. And whenever there was a Asian role, he dropped my name. And so my career got a good momentum going behind it.
Yeah, it built amazing. I finally saw your Twilight episode. I know through time it like wasn't included in syndication. I think because of some of the racial
Right.
jargon that's used in it and things like that. And I finally watched. I'm like, wow, that is just riveting. So it put me back in that time too, and I went, man, that's how he got all these roles because it was just so compelling to watch. Again, I know we're a little tight on time. I've got to. My listeners will kill me if I don't get to Star Trek a little bit here. I got to ask you, one of the most momentous occasions in your life recently. When I was growing up, I had the Star Trek Mego action figures, and there was always like Kirk and Spock and Scotty, and there was Uhura, but there was never a Sulu. You finally got your own Mego. Do you have one of these Mego
I
figure?
I don't have that one, but
Okay,
do you have the one where
there's Walter.
uh, I'm shirtless, just like
Yeah,
Kirk,
yeah,
or just like Tab Hunter did.
yeah. This one you got that one.
Yeah,
We're showing it there. Yeah, the
well,
evil, the mirror universe.
right. Uh,
Why didn't you have one back in the 70s? What
but,
happened? Why didn't
but,
they give you an action figure back in the 70s?
but have you seen the one that's a Christmas tree ornament? I'm
No.
shirtless with my fencing foil like that. I have two of
Iconic.
those. I have two of those, two different poses. One is just me with my fencing foil, but
All
the
right.
other one, it's a two-character piece. Uh, Sulu's got his fencing foil on from this higher platform, and
Yeah.
cowering behind me is Captain Kirk, avoiding my fencing foil. Oh, you gotta get that one. Uh,
I gotta get that one too. I'm sure you probably have like 12 of them because of your love of Bill Shatner. Because of your love of
Bill
Bill
Shatner
Shatner.
cowering under muscular.
You love Bill. You love Bill, right? Though you do. Come on, after all these years, I was curious why you didn't have an action figure back in the 70s. Did they not license your rights, or what was the deal on that? Because
I don't
they
know.
finally came.
I,
All
I
right,
just I just work for Paramount Studios, and
all right.
whoever.
That's I got to ask you about Peter David, the late great Peter David, comic book writer. Not so the graphic memoirs. You've got those out now, but not your first time in the world of comic books. You wrote a Star Trek comic tale with Peter David. Do you recall anything about that partnership that you had of working on that story?
I love Peter. He had a wild and very imaginative, creative sense of humor, and I love working on that. But particularly a script that he wrote that we filmed not in Canada or Atlanta, where most of the filming seems to be going on now. We shot on location in Romania, of all places. As a matter of fact, right after Ceausescu, the dictator, was assassinated, and there were bullet holes in the walls of the government buildings there. there was a revolution. And so we filmed that in Romania. It was a Western story that took place on a planet out in the galaxies, but it was patterned after Gunsmoke, the TV series. And my character was patterned after the doctor there, bearded and cantankerous. But there was a scene, and he's an alcoholic. And there's a scene where he's been drinking at the saloon, completely blotto, and carrying a whiskey bottle. And he staggers out and leans on a pillar. And I came up with an idea, and I didn't tell Peter about it. It's his script, and I didn't want him to nix it. We were filming on location in Romania. One of the crew people was going to London on a break, and I asked him, can you buy a bottle of Jim Beam whiskey, bourbon, and bring me back a bottle of that? And I gave him Romanian money, the equivalent of whatever that cost. Came back with a bottle, and I drank that up in my hotel room. I had an empty bottle, and in that scene where I come staggering out of the saloon and lean on the pillar there, I bring up this almost empty bottle of whiskey, and I look at it and I say, Jim, beam me up. And I drink from it, and it's empty, and I throw it away, and I stagger down the street. Peter was so angry, but the producer and director loved it, and it's the film, and he will, even from that heavenly cloud, he will still rail at me for having messed up his scene, but people loved it.
He is missed. He is missed. I know we got like about 5 minutes left. I'm going to go speed round with you here. I'm curious if you've seen the Star Trek short film 765-874 Unification. They de-aged Shatner. They de-aged Nimoy. Have you seen this?
No.
Okay. Would you? Yeah, it's a short film. They put him in. It's, you know, would you, like, they brought Nimoy back? It's, I don't know. To me, those things are kind of creepy. I don't know, like bringing back, you know, actors that have passed on. But
is it a cartoon?
No, it's like de-aged. It's live action. They had Shatner there, and I think they put the dots on his face.
Oh.
Would you do that? Would you do a de-aged Sulu? Would you do that?
I think it'd be fun.
Okay.
But it'd have to be a comedy because we're going to have to be made up.
Bill Shatner and Neil deGrasse Tyson, they're touring the country. When are we going to get to see the two-man show?
Right now?
Yeah, when are we going to see the two-man show, George and Bill, Trek Talk? Please, any chance of that happening? Or a revival of The Odd Couple. You love treading the boards, right?
Hey, I love it. I love theater.
Would you do Odd Couple with William Shatner?
That does, it stops me a little. I'd have to think on it.
Yeah, that's not a no.
Theater is working night after night after night. And if you're lucky, it's going to be a long run production. I will have to think about every day.
That's not a no. That's not a no. Take all my money, take all of our money. If you guys do that, that would be so great. We're approaching the 60th anniversary of Star Trek. I can't even believe saying that.
Isn't that incredible?
What does Star Trek mean to you? What does Sulu mean to you and the fans that you meet all these for over 60 years now almost?
It is a phenomenon that I am deeply indebted to. We feel so lucky because the idea that Gene Roddenberry came up with, Gene wanted to write about what was happening in contemporary times in the 60s, the civil rights movement going on, the peace movement in Vietnam, so full of drama, and he wanted to dramatize it. But this is television. It's an advertising medium, and if you deal with those controversial issues of the time, they wouldn't buy it. But he came up with a wonderfully Gene Roddenberry creative idea. He would put the story in the future and tell it in the future context, but using these issues of the times of the 60s as a metaphor. So he dealt with the civil rights movement, but in the future. He dealt with the peace movement for war in Vietnam in the future. And he began with this shining, glowing, idealistic premise, IDIC, that acronym, IDIC, infinite diversity in infinite combinations. And so he had the story in a starship with that infinite diversity and infinite combinations personified by the members of the crew. A white North American as the captain, Europe being represented by a Scottish engineer, Africa being represented by an African woman. That was an issue of gender equality. And he had a problem with the Asian character because Asia is such a vast part of the planet Earth, and all Asian surnames are nationally specific. Tanaka is Japanese, Wong is Chinese, Kim is Korean, and 20th century Asia was rife with warfare, colonization, rebellion, and he didn't want to bring all that division into the picture. He wanted something that represented all, a name that represented all of Asia. He had a map of Asia on the wall, and he saw off the coast of the Philippines the Sulu Sea, and he thought, the waters of a sea touch all shores, and that's why my character happened to have that. And so it was his vision of the future and finding strength in our diversity, working together in concert. That was the strength of the Starship Enterprise. And so it was that philosophy that I think grabbed generation after generation after generation, so that we're now about to celebrate the 60th anniversary. I mean, 50 would be fantastic, and we passed that. And now it's 60, and it's still going strong.
We love that we can still talk to you about it. There's so much Trek out there. We hope to see you back, maybe in uniform at some point too. It's such a great storytelling device. It gives such an optimistic view of the future. And I think that's the message too in your graphic memoirs too, to come out. I think a lot of that plays into that as well. And I know that's very important to you. And important to all of us. So thank you for all that you do. Thank you for bringing us these characters over the years. Thank you for opening up your life to us. Continued success, and I hope we get to meet in person this time. I'll come up to your table next time if you're in Ohio. Mr. Takei, thank you so much.
Call me George, and you don't have to stand in line. Contact Brad, my husband, and we could meet for dinner afterwards.
Knock back a few rounds. We'll get that Jim Beam. You beam me up. We'll do that for real next time.
Jim beam me up.
Jim beam me up. Thank you so much, and continued success.
Thank you. Live long and prosper.
Live long and prosper.